Guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. We're here with Malagor the Dark Omen and the Beastmen, going to be taking on the High Elves, so we're definitely in for a high-octane battle. Let's go ahead and take a look at the army compositions. I've got Malagor here to summon a couple Cygors. I've also brought the Vile Tide for the leftover magic. And for that Vigor refresh in the late game, that Bestial Surge. In the late game, after we've summoned both Cygors, we can use that Vile Tide to proc that Bestial Surge and give our troops Vigor. Very good in a late game situation. We've also got the Icons of Vilification for that extra leadership. Something wicked this way comes for minus enemy leadership. And yeah, that's pretty much it for Malagor himself. The reason I brought Malagor is summoning Cygors is pretty decent. The High Elves tend to bring quite a bit of elite infantry in this matchup. And he's also cheap, and Morgar is pretty risky in this matchup because you very often see dragons. Dragons with their flaming attacks, all High Elf dragons do have flaming attacks, will just completely wreck Morgar in combat. So Malagor, while he's still very squishy, can at least give you that Cygor summons and saves you on having to bring a caster, so you can bring a nice wide army. You can see we have done just that. We've got 4 units of Gorherds with shield, 2 Minotaurs with shields, a unit of Bestigor Herd, 2 Spearmen, Ungor Spearman Herd out to the flanks, and 4 units of Centaurs with throwing axes out in Vanguard, and 1 Centaur with Great Weapon here in the Sweeper. Honestly, since the Centaurs with Great Weapons lost their splash attacks, I'm a little bit underwhelmed by them. They seem not to trade nearly as cost effectively as they used to, but I have to do a little bit more testing with them, but I'm not completely sold on these guys at the moment. In terms of my opponent's build, he's got a front line of White Lions, which, I mean, I've talked about these guys before. They can be good in certain matchups, but I'm not a huge fan of them. He's got a couple units of archers, spearmen out on the flanks. The Lord is going to be Tyrion with a Lore Master of Hoeth on foot, Spirit Leech, Earthblood, Harmonic Convergence, and Shem's Burning Gaze. Other than Shem's Burning Gaze, I agree with all of those spell choices. I'm not a huge fan of Shem's Burning Gaze. Just because even in this particular matchup, it does do flaming damage, but Morgar has missile and magic resistance, both of which apply to Shem's Burning Gaze. So anyway, we've also got a unit of Dragon Princes and a Moon Dragon up in the sky. So definitely a very scary army. And right off the bat, you can see these Centaurs have taken quite a bit of damage. They got a nasty breath attack from that dragon, I believe. So decent so far. Going to be just kind of developing a little bit of a skirmish phase as we harass out towards the flanks on this side and over here through the woods. I haven't spotted these Dragon Princes quite yet, but my opponent has spotted my forces here, so we're going to be moving up and trying to chuck some axes at them. You can see I've discovered them now, so we're going to be pulling away slightly. And yeah, hopefully we'll get a nice volley there. It doesn't do too much damage because of the shield and other mitigation stats there, as well as being in the woods. Some of those axes will hit the trees. But so far so good. Just kind of baiting some volleys out of these archers here, trying to get get my opponent out of position. We've summoned up a Cygor now. Going to be trying to open up shots, see if I can draw my opponent to come towards me, because then I can get like a nice full surround here with these Centaurs. Really force my opponent into an unfavorable situation, but my opponent's not going to take the bait here. He's wisely just going to start to pull his army back a little bit, which is going to allow me some time to fire with my Cygor. But you know, here at the extreme edge of its range, it's not going to be nearly as accurate. So I'm going to move up my Cygor a little bit to get a little bit better shot. But you can see once I chuck this next boulder, my opponent is going to pull back. So we'll go ahead and fast forward a little bit as I advance my forces up. Decided to just take the fight to him. I'm fairly confident that with the Bestigor and the Minotaurs we can crush this front line engagement relatively easily. My opponent really doesn't have the missile support, I don't think, to take down my units here. Regardless, we're going to try and pressure with the Centaurs as much as possible to keep his missiles occupied so they're not shooting at my Minotaurs. It's a very high value unit, something I'm going to need to take out a lot of his high value stuff here. You can see though, I'm just kind of pulling around with these Centaurs, using their mobility, baiting out Dragon Breath, and now going to be catching these Spearmen unbraced from the one side and then immediately going to be collapsing the other side with this other unit of Centaurs here. The Alpha Strike philosophy here is we just get as much damage in as possible on these Spearmen as quickly as possible and try and take them off the battlefield. course, High Elves have very good leadership, so they're not going to break, unfortunately, but we do quite a bit of damage. Unfortunately, do lose out on a unit of Centaurs with great weapons, so probably not the most cost-effective trade at the end of the day. But again, just trying to keep these missiles occupied here as my forces advance. High Elf missiles do have a very long range, so already these Minotaurs could potentially be fired at by those missiles. You can see my opponent's pulling over his other unit of archers as well to deal with these Centaurs with throwing axes, so that is affording my forces the chance to advance. We've got a few solid hits with the Cygor. Now we're going to be getting the mainline engagement underway, so you can see the cow herds charging in all angry here, just going to be chucking through those white lions. And white lions, although they will do very well against gore herds, are going to get absolutely crushed by Minotaurs. So yeah, really rough situation there. Very nice Dragon Breath, though, just destroying a ton of those Bestigor herd. They're suffering pretty badly, and we're just going to path, because there's not a lot of high mass units here for my opponent, so we're just going to path the Minotaurs straight through and get onto those archers, occupy them. Same thing with these Gore herds, just get through and occupy those archers. Dragon Princes had been harassed a little bit by my Centaurs with throwing axes, now going to pull around into this mainline engagement here, where this dragon is as well. And if they get a clean charge on these Minotaurs, they will do quite a bit of damage here. It's a little bit of a risk, but I'm going to pull in the Centaurs with great weapons here as well to try and deal some damage on these Dragon Princes and the dragon itself. We're also going to get the remainder of these Centaurs with throwing axes, who are currently cleaning up this spearman out here on the flanks. We're going to hook them up and around and try and start throwing some axes into this Moon Dragon here. You can see the terror kicks in. Those Centaurs with great weapons rout off without having done too much damage. Likewise, though, I've summoned up another Cygor right in the center here, which does terror rout away those white lions. Dragon Princes are trying to pull away here, but getting caught up on Bestigor and the Minotaurs here. Point-blank shot from the Cygor as well. But yeah, we're going to pull these Minotaurs back now and try and deal some damage to Tyrion himself. I really don't want Tyrion going after Malagor the Dark Omen, or the dragon for that matter, so Malagor's in a very dangerous situation here. Pulling in the Centaurs with great weapons just to screen for a moment while I try and get Malagor away. I'm not really confident that their leadership will be able to hold up here. They will do a little bit of damage, but it's pretty underwhelming. We're going to get the heavy hitters in here, though, the Minotaurs. A couple of them get staggered by the dragon, but they are able to get some effective attacks here, start doing some damage. The dragon is going to take quite a bit of damage, and now we've routed off most of the support units. Tyrion himself is still relatively healthy, fighting this Cygor here, just keeping him occupied. I don't expect the Cygor to necessarily win that fight, but we've got the dragon isolated now, going to be just throwing in the axes from the side, and got it surrounded by Minotaurs and Centaurs with great weapons here, just doing a ton of armor-piercing damage. That being said, I mean, the Moon Dragon only has 50 armor at the end of the day, so you don't need that much armor piercing to get through it anyway, but it's mostly just the high mass units meant to hold it here in place and do a ton of DPS to it. You can see the Moon Dragon is going to be routing off, so it has tipped the balance of power pretty well in my favor. Malagor is just kind of chilling here. Fighting the Lore Master of Hoth, definitely not the greatest idea, so he's going to run the other direction and let some of these other troops take care of my opponent's heroic units. We're going to try and path things in on Tyrion and take him down now. So Centaurs with great weapons coming in. Minotaurs also look like that guy whipped his charge a little bit, but that Cygor is going to go down, of course, from the degeneration and the fact that it was fighting Tyrion, but Tyrion's trying to pull away here, but now that he's surrounded by Minotaurs, he's got them on all sides, it's going to be pretty tough for him to get away. This White Lion, which had been chasing off some of my routing units, has come back to try and support here. They're relatively healthy. We'll be able to do some damage on these Gore herds with shields and maybe spring loose from these Minotaurs. The Minotaurs will turn around and do some damage. We've got the other unit coming in, though, and the Centaurs with throwing axes are on station as well. I believe these guys are going to be going after that Lore Master of Hoeth, who, with his Foe Seeker popped, is up to 47 speed, so almost as fast as like a Ushabti. Just chasing down Malagor here. You can see Malagor running for his life, not wanting to get involved with this Lore Master of Hoeth here with his anti-infantry bonus. And great combat stats. Lore Master of Hoeth taking the throwing axes to the back like a true champ. Tyrion looks like he's able to extricate himself and go after those Centaurs with throwing axes, but he doesn't have a missile block chance, so he doesn't want to take that fire too much. Granted, he does have a bit of missile resistance here. If we go ahead and take a look at Tyrion, if I can get his unit card, he's a bit fast. Tyrion is actually probably the fastest heavy cavalry lord in the game, but let's see here. 15% missile resistance is not too bad, but it's not going to mitigate too much of the damage from these Centaurs with throwing axes here, so Yeah, isolated as he is, he's going to take a ton of damage, and his leadership is going to start to tank as the rest of his forces are shattered at this point. So, yeah, it is going to be a victory for the Beastmen. Kind of nice to take a Beastman build without Morgar. I know some people think Morgar's a little boring. I don't really get that, because I don't think, summoning Chaos Spawn is boring at all, but, to each his own. Nice to see Malagor sometimes. The Minotaurs did some really nice work. Both of them picked up XP chevrons and did some really great work against the White Lions and against the Moon Dragon. Some of the Centaurs with throwing axes got some good work done. These two picked up XP chevrons, 86 kills here, where this other unit is the one that kind of got Dragon Breath that shot down. Pretty rough. The mainline engagement, the frontline troops did their job in just kind of holding there. For my opponent, White Lions did pretty decent in certain respects, but they kind of got run over, and this is one of the reasons why I'm not a huge fan of White Lions, especially in this matchup. They won't trade effectively against Bestigor Herd. They'll trade effectively against all lower tier infantry, but you can expect some armor-piercing specialty units from the Beastmen, because they have quite a few. Chariots, Minotaurs, Centaurs with throwing axes and great weapons are all going to be very common picks in this matchup. So I think you're better off to either go cheaper, go with Spearmen, or else go more expensive and get, Phoenix Guard, or one Swordmaster of Hoeth might be a good unit of Swordmasters, might be a good idea. But, yeah, I'm not really sure. Let's go ahead and talk about some things real quick. Personally, against the Beastmen, I think that, honestly, the best unit in this matchup, the true MVPs here, are the Illyrian Reaver Archers, just because they have great combat stats. They can hang around with Bestigor, just because they have really good combat stats. If we take a look at the High Elves here, in comparison to the Beastmen, so the Illyrian Reaver Archers, if we look here, they have huge range, great missile damage, not the best armor piercing, but pretty decent at 3, not too terrible. If we compare their combat stats, though, to, let's say, even Centaurs with throwing axes, for example, a very common pick in this matchup. They have, Illyrian Reavers have better attack and defense, just baseline, plus they have the benefit of having a martial prowess. Granted, the Centaurs do have the Primal Fury buff, giving them more speed and melee attack and so on, but still, Illyrian Reaver Archers, although they don't have armor-piercing ammo, have much longer range, and also have better combat stats. So that being what it is, they are a little bit slower, but you don't really need armor-piercing missiles against the Beastmen anyway. Most of their high-value units are going to be low armor, Minotaurs, Centaurs, even Cygors, all very low armor units, so I do think the Illyrian Reaver Archers are MVPs in this particular matchup. I think you can forego Archers on foot in this matchup. I mean, maybe Lothran Seaguard because they have the anti-large bonus, but they will get run over pretty hard by most Beastmen infantry, so I think they're a tough pick in this matchup. The nice thing about the Illyrian Reaver Archers is you can get away. Even Centaurs with great weapons will struggle to deal with the Illyrian Reaver Archers and the regular Centaurs because they just don't have the raw combat stats to stand up in that fight. So I do think the Illyrian Reaver Archers are a very safe pick in that respect. Even if you get caught out, they can handle their own in melee, and they'll be very, very good at range. So, yeah, I definitely recommend you bring these guys against the Beastmen. That is all for today. If you like this kind of content, like and subscribe. I'm keeping it coming with more Total War Warhammer 2 content every single day, so stay tuned for more, and we'll see you next time.